I'm going to do a review of Blue Shift by Joshua Dalzelle. It's a fun, quick sci-fi fix. Good length, not too short, not too long. It's a well-paced book. So I never felt like, oh Christ, would you just get on with it? I never felt like the book was dragging or that it was going too fast. Very well-paced. It's satisfying, good ending. The characters, what happens to the characters is all quite appropriate. And I think it's a natural, what happens to the characters is it's not a question of what is just and unjust or what you want to happen. It's just what you would expect and what is natural given the choices that they make in the story. So I like that, and I think it's very consistent throughout the book, the consequences of the actions that the characters take. It's an enjoyable and an easy book to read. The narrative is not complex. It's straightforward. It's a linear narrative and easy to follow. There are some really great moments in the book. There are a few particularly beautiful moments that I really, really enjoyed. The only problem with the book, there are a couple of problems, but the only real major one was the character. The characters are a bit two-dimensional. They're a cut above that. They're not cookie cutter, but they're not quite well fleshed out. They don't feel like real people. They feel like characters in a sci-fi novel, which I suppose is fine because it's not a particularly ambitious work, but at the same time, it would have been nice if they had a bit more depth. At the start of the novel, it's actually a problem because it's difficult to tell the characters apart. Who the hell is Samantha and Jelly and whatever the other one was called? And I also had difficulty telling apart the two main male characters, Marcus and Xavier, at the very start of the book. It became easier as I went on, but the differentiation in characters at the start of the book is quite weak. And the characters don't develop much depth beyond what you get at the start of the book. Things happen to them, but their basic character, they feel kind of like they're just a typecast. They have a role in the novel, and that's it. You learn things about them, but yeah, that was the only weakness for me, the characters. There is one poorly explained plot hole, which, when you think about it, doesn't really make much sense, and there's no real explanation of it. The author goes out of his way to cover up other potential plot holes, and he does a really good job of it, but there is one that he just doesn't fix for me. And that said, those are the only problems. Overall, I enjoyed it a lot. I got through it very quickly, and I would recommend it for anybody who just wants a quick sci-fi hit. I would give this book an 8 out of 10. So that's my review. I'm going to do a discussion of the book now, which will involve spoilers. I thought the story was very good. Nothing spectacular, but the idea of a crew coming back from a distant star and finding that Earth is just desolate, that was great. The fact that they were wiped out by a virus is a bit obvious. And I also don't buy that human beings would completely lose all technological capability. That's just ridiculous. The notion that a virus, even if it did wipe out 60%, and then famine wiped out the rest of humanity, there's no way you're going to lose all your technology. You're still going to have a lot of books left over. You're still going to have writing. The notion that human beings can go all the way back to the Paleolithic period, like pre-civilization, not a chance. That's ridiculous. He kind of suggests that more happened than just the plague and famines, that there was something else going on that destroyed human civilization. But the fact that there's still a lot of humans on the planet, they would have access to the, tools of learning, which would bring them out of the Paleolithic period. You can't go from humanity in 2060 to the Stone Age in 800 years. That's just not possible unless you almost completely wipe out humanity, like way over 99%, which isn't what happened, apparently, according to the Martians. The opening is slightly confusing because I really couldn't tell the characters apart. It took me a little while to figure out who was who, and even at the end, like I really, when I was reading it I was hearing it in my head, what I couldn't really differentiate that well between the two female characters at the end. They felt they just didn't feel that different to me. Like their differences weren't well fleshed out. It was just female character A, female character B, sort of bad girl, victim girl. It just wasn't, his characterization isn't great in the novel. Mars was a very good idea. Bringing the Martians into it was great. And it also kept me interested in the story, seeing what's going to happen with Mars, as well as what's going to happen with people on Earth, the crew that landed on Earth, and the savage primordial humans. So Mars was really good. That was a fun idea. The plot holes were well covered. For example, like the stasis technology that they have, it's not perfect. It's kind of crappy, and most of the crew died because of it. I thought that was quite good because it wasn't presenting this kind of technocratic notion that we're going to be able to hop into a tank in 50 years and emerge whenever. Like it was a risky technology. I liked that. I liked Xavier's reasoning for getting on the spaceship when he said, I didn't want to go into stasis on Earth because that would be, you're one political decision away from somebody flipping the switch and turning your stasis tank off. That's absolutely correct. I thought that was a very good observation on the part of the author. If people did climb into stasis tanks, it's only a matter of time before some wanker of a politician sees votes in just turning off the tanks because he regards it as unjust in some undefinable way. So that was good, and there were other plot holes that were well covered. The one plot hole which wasn't covered was, why didn't the Martians know more about Earth? You could just send a probe onto the surface. If they could send a vaccine onto the surface, then they could certainly send probes just to see what was going on. Apparently, the Martians are very intellectually curious, but they're not intellectually curious enough to have figured out that there's still people on Earth. That's crazy, and that's not really explained very well. So I do think that that's a bit of a plot hole. There was a really, really gorgeous moment in the book when the wee scheming rat Nigel breaks Xavier's leg with a stick and beats him with a stick so that Xavier will get eaten by the wolves and he can escape. It's so beautiful, and it's so Nigel. It's you could see it coming, but it was still a very satisfying moment because Xavier deserved it. The way the author writes about Xavier, he builds him up as a real dickhead, so it's so enjoyable when Xavier gets beaten and eaten by wolves. And the fact that Nigel just sacrificed him like that, it was just perfect. I love that moment in the book. That was beautiful. The ending was quite satisfying. I thought, if they did break up into two groups, likely, 1, 2, maybe 3 of them are going to get out of that alive. So it turned into a horrible mess, and right enough, because one group, Nigel, Xavier, and whatever her name was, made that really poor decision to beat Jelly over the head and run for it. Yeah, the consequences for that, I think, were they were what you would expect in that kind of situation, so that worked well. And yeah, pretty good book overall. The savage humans were a bit of fun as well, and I liked it. It's a fun, entertaining, enjoyable sci-fi with a few problems here and there, but nothing major. So I would recommend the book.